Hello and welcome to Calls. This is the 2022 St. Jude Initial Research Show. We have made it to the first playoff event. The top 125 players during the PGA Tour this season have now been defined and are ready to compete for the FedEx Championship or the PGA Tour Championship in 2 weeks at East Lake. But I want to hear about your Wyndham. Mine, I would say by definition, was a success, even though I didn't come out ahead monetarily. And the reason why I want to call it a success is that I had 55% of my lineups go 6 of 6. Now, I didn't hit any outright wagers. I did have a couple of top 20s that were very, very live heading into the fourth round Sunday, and then they fell off. I had an outside chance at a win ticket, but I want to hear from you all. How was your DFS? Did you have a lot of 6 of 6 lineups go through? If so, then I might need to recalibrate what I defined as success. But like I said, 55% of my lineups were 6 of 6. Unfortunately, a lot of them, Lowry, Rose, CT Pan, who withdrew after making the cut. A lot of these players just were very middling. I did have Jude Kim in a couple of lineups. I'm trying to think, maybe 3 or 4, but obviously not nearly enough. And what a dominating performance. And just an impressive performance the entire weekend, really, especially or during the week, the entire week, especially the weekend, I should say. But I want to hear from you all. How much success did you all have? Did you bet Jude Kim outright? I know several people did. A lot of people were hyping him up. I loved the player. Didn't bet him at 35-1. I think he was when he started. But if you did, let me know. I'd love to be able to shout you out and congratulate you. How were your DFS lineups? All of that good stuff. Pretty sure it's going to be a shorter show tonight. The Fantasy National team has not been able to load the St. Jude field, so we're going to be only able to cover the basics. I do have the GCSA tournament fact sheet. We'll be able to cover a few things, but don't be surprised if it's a shorter show tonight. I think that's going to do it. One last announcement. I mentioned it all last week. I'm still live on Twitch every day. I'm going to try to start narrowing down a time when I can get on a consistent sleep schedule. But mostly it'll be during the mornings. Maybe take a break for lunch, and then I will be back on, prepping for the shows, especially tomorrow for the Data Dive show. But during Twitch, I'll be updating my spreadsheets. I'll be doing my own research. Might even be playing a few video games or computer games. So hopefully you all come on by, hang out. Would love to have that interaction there. And it's unfettered access really to anything you want to ask. Golf, baseball, or just chat, anything. So I think that is going to do it for the announcement. So let's get into the new week at the start of the playoffs. So all statistics provided tonight and every night are from fantasynational.com. It is simply the best tool out there. It allowed me, this idiot, to make 55% of his lineups go 6 of 6. So if it can help me do that, what is it going to do in more powerful hands like yours? It's simply the best tool out there. Go check them out. It's well worth your investment. In the description to the video, there are links to my social media, all of it, Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, all of that, and a Discord server that I have also created. So those are all the various ways to get a hold of me. If you want to see some research that I do, I generally post that on Mondays to Twitter and Instagram. If you want to, see, like I said, see some of that research, or just get a hold of me, questions that you want to have answered, those are the various ways to contact me. And then finally, we're live. Chat's open, as you can tell, as I'm trying to fumble through this intro. again, like I said, I want to hear from you all. How was your Wyndham week? What are you looking forward to in terms of the St. Jude and the start of the FedEx Cup playoffs? All that good stuff. So let's do our initial research for the 2022 St. Jude. And we start with the GCSA tournament fact sheet. We are in Memphis, Tennessee at TPC Southwind. It is a par 70, a fairly long par 70 over or just at 7,250 yards, 7,250. The greens are small, pretty darn small at 4,300 square feet, quite a lot of rough. There are 11 holes with water in play. The architect was Ron Pritchard with consultants of Hubert Green and Fuzzy Zeller. Fuzzy Zeller is just local to me. In fact, I just got back from or played a Fuzzy Zeller course earlier today. No comment on how much it kicked my ass. But it is a Ron Pritchard design, so nothing with architect in terms of Fantasy National filters we can use. But we are on Bermuda greens with zoysia in the fairways and Bermuda in the rough. The rough generally is not long, but there's just a lot of it, not a lot of fairway. I believe these fairways are very difficult to hit. But there you go. I believe most of the years it has been fast Bermuda, but we won't be able to check that until tomorrow when the field is actually loaded. I do have a little bit of some course statistics, but not a whole lot as we usually do in the research. But there's a look at TPC Southwind from a GCSA tournament fact sheets view. Again, par 70, fairly long par 70. It's middling in length in terms of overall courses compared to each other. So no filter in terms of long or short, but by par 70s standards, it's pretty long. Very small greens, lots of rough, so fairways can be difficult to hit. Quite a bit of water in play. Bermuda greens and zoysia fairways. So we now move to Fantasy National. And again, as I mentioned, I have this on the PGA Tour Players page, but I will even kind of reload this for you all. The St. Jude field has just not been loaded in yet. It's all Wyndham, which is fine. We'll make do, and then I will tentatively plan to have a longer show tomorrow, especially cover some of the initial research material we normally do. Make sure to include that tomorrow, and then the full data dive. But since we are on the PGA Tour Players page, to be honest with you, I have no idea even the top 125. I know some of the guys who were on the bubble, don't know who made it, who didn't. I have been out and about. Like I said, I mentioned I played a Fuzzy Zeller course today, so I was out playing 18 holes. I had some other things going on, so I haven't seen the full field. But there's a few things we can gather, especially from the GCSA tournament fact sheet we just saw. So let me go ahead and preset this to the last. I guess I should probably go to the first of the year. So 1/1/2022, and it's going to be pretty slow. I don't think I'll be even able to do custom date ranges. Just too much data for Fantasy National to try to gather, since it's all of the PGA Tour players. But I've got that preset. There's a couple of things we can look at since we know the grass type. We don't know speeds, although I'm pretty confident it's fast. We can take a look at Bermuda greens and at least see who has putt the best on Bermuda. So this is, how many rounds is this? We got 36 dating back to the last 6 months. Sure. So since February 1st of 2022, your top Bermuda green putters, no speeds, just straight Bermuda. Those players are Terrell Hatton, Lucas Herbert, Brian Gay, Tommy Fleetwood, Sam Burns, Brendan Todd, Bo Hostler, Martin Trainer, Alex Noren, and Matt Kuchar. And again, I'm hoping most of these players are at least in the field or will give you some good idea. For example, Brooks obviously not playing as he is part of LIV, although I'm not sure how those court proceedings are going. I believe they will be ruled on, some of them will be ruled on tomorrow as far as if they're legally able to play due to the lawsuit that they filed, all that stuff. But anyway, like I said, hopefully most of these 10 top 10s will be in the field. And if you know, or if you are wanting to look at a certain player, please, by all means, put it in chat. Be happy to do that, especially since this is going to be a shorter show. Would love the interaction. But there are your top performers on Bermuda greens. I suppose we could look at par 70s just because there's not a lot we can look at tonight. So your top performers on par 70 courses since February 1st, 2022. Those players are Rory, Matt Fitzpatrick, Xander, Tony Finau, Scotty Scheffler, Shane Lowry, Max Homa, Will Zalatoris, Sam Burns, and Justin Thomas. So premier players, obviously. But before we get any further, let's take a look at what Fantasy National does have in terms of a course breakdown. So here is TPC Southwind from a scorecard view. First thing I like to do when we look at a scorecard, I like to look at the 9th and 10th most difficult holes, figure out where par is. Well, both of them are over par. So we have to go to 11th, still over, 12th, barely, and then 13th is right at par. So difficult course, especially when it's the 13th easiest that rates out as par. Now, having said that, there's a few big scores, but not a whole lot. It's just a bunch of difficult holes. This is a course where par is good. So the toughest hole, quarter of a shot over par, very tough, but nothing, astronomically difficult. The 17th, 2/10ths, but you have a lot of these holes that are, 600ths, 700ths. Compare that with the two easiest holes. Now, the easiest hole, to be fair, is a half a shot under par. A decent eagle rate's just a bunch of birdies. But then, you come into the 17th, quarter of a shot, so you've already dropped 50%. Then the next easiest, it goes from a quarter of a shot to less than a tenth of a shot. So the holes that are gettable shrink very, very quickly here at TPC Southwind. So there is a look at the scorecard. Definitely going to be more on the tough side this week. Strokes gained by shot type, an average or an expected distribution, a normal distribution. Strokes gained approach, then putting. Off the tee and around the green are similar, which leads to a slight ball striking course. At least that's for the top 10s. You move to the top 5s. Approach, again, really starts to separate itself. Off the tee and around the green are fairly similar. And then the winners, then it really starts to become a ball striking course. So you can see the importance of approach. Off the tee really gains in importance for the winners. It actually is somewhat on par with putting. And around the green just doesn't take off in terms of importance at all. I'll reset this to the top 10s. Strokes gained by hole by par. You have a pretty darn even distribution here. The y-axis is getting cut off. So right here is 0.1. Right here is 0.15. So the par 3s and the 4s are essentially the same in terms of importance for the top 10s. Par 5s are slightly more important, but in a grand scheme or a large scale, they're all roughly the same in terms of importance. Top 5s, this really starts to even out, and then the winners, again, par 5s kind of take off from there. But it's not until the winners that you start getting some separation in terms of 3s versus 4s versus 5s. I come back to the top 10s here. Hole composition, your 4 par 3s are divided 2 by very short and 2 short. So 2 from 150 to 175, 2 from 175 to 200. And then your 12 par 4s are comprised of 1 short, 1 long, and then you have 6 from 450 to 500, 4 from 400 to 450. So we'll see, especially tomorrow in the data dive, we'll take an extreme look at that and see if one of these two ranges is a bigger factor. We can maybe take a cursory look up here at the scorecard. Like 434, that's pretty much right in the middle. It probably won't change. Now 401 drops into the lower. 485 probably doesn't change. 482 probably doesn't change. Maybe the 457 drops. 453 maybe drops. So you can see a scenario where maybe these two even out in terms of the amount of holes. We'll have to again see if there is a dominant range in terms of importance. Excuse me, that's the par 4s. And the par 5s, the 2 are split between the 1 short, which is the easy par 5 on the back, or excuse me, it's a par 5 on the back. Yeah, 18. He plays a half a shot under par, and then the longer par 5 on the front still plays to a quarter of a shot under par. Approach shot distribution, majority of the approach shots, just like from Sedgefield this past week, is from 150 to 175, so we'll take a pretty heavy scrutiny into that. Then you have 175 to 200, 125 to 150. So it's these 3 ranges here that seem to garner the most approach shots from that length. Historic cut line, again, speaking to the difficulty of the course, you saw in the late 2000s it got up to +6. Now recently it's been in the +1, +2 area, which is technically defined as average, but certainly on the more difficult end of average. You can see that here. Birdies, 17%. Bogeys, 16-ish%, 16.5%. But that doubles bar is quite visible. There are quite a few big numbers here. So when you combine the bogeys and the doubles, they outweigh the birdies. So much more on the difficult end. Driving accuracy, again, as I mentioned, there was a lot of rough. I felt like there, historically, at least from what I remember, fairways are difficult to hit here. You see that. Greens are difficult to hit here. Again, speaking to the difficulty of the course and the small greens. Greens are going to be a pretty big factor, I think. Scrambling percentage. Now, players are successful at scrambling more often here than the average tour event. Not by much, but some. So definitely going to be wanting to look at greens, maybe fairways, but we'll have to see. 3 putts per round, not a big factor here. Quite a few less than the average tour event. Distance is higher here. That leads me to believe that the rough is not penal, but we'll have to check the historic conditions tomorrow when the field is loaded into Fantasy National. And then proximity to the hole, again, due to the small greens, if you're hitting a green here, you're going to be closer to the hole by default since the greens are pretty small. So 25.5 feet here versus 29 at the average tour event. And then birdie putts, maybe 15 to 20 feet, maybe 10 to 15 feet. Yeah, 10 to 15 feet, there's quite a bit of a gap there, but we'll have to see that as we research throughout the week. So there's a look at TPC Southwind from a graphical and scorecard view in Fantasy National. Now that we have a few more metrics to go by, we can perhaps take a look at some other things here. Let's just take a look at strokes gained approach. So your top strokes gained approach player, again with no filters, double checking, no filters, just in the past 6 months, so dating back to February 1st. Top strokes gained approach players: Tony Finau, Xander, Shane Lowry, Cam Smith, Sam Burns, Justin Thomas, Brendan Steele, Rory, Russell Henley, and Scotty Scheffler. To be expected, these are premier players or guys that are really hot right now. Russell Henley's always a great iron player. Brendan Steele's always a great iron player. Generally good ball striker. You see the short game, just atrocious. Justin Thomas, Sam Burns, all that good stuff. So there you go, there's that. Let's now move to the fairways and greens. We'll take a look at fairways, greens, all that good stuff. Again, you see most of the time if guys are fairway finders, they're not long. But you have Mito here, 21st in fairways, 75th in distance. Webb, decent enough at distance. There's Brendan Steele, Sung Jae, Xander. So decent stuff there. But what I really want to do, I want to take a look at these greens in regulation. Again, no filter, just who hits the most greens in regulation. Because these greens are small, because this course is difficult, greens in regulation are going to be a big factor. So your top greens in regulation game players since February 1st with no filters. Rory, Tony Finau, Brendan Steele, Scotty Scheffler, Adam Long, Xander Schauffele, Shane Lowry, Jon Rahm, Billy Horschel, and Mito. All right. Anything else we want to look at in this tab? Scrambling was easier here, so I don't think that's going to be a big factor. Or at least players are much more successful scrambling here. Sand saves, might want to take a look at birdies and bogeys. When it is difficult, I am wanting to see who either gets birdies and or avoids bogeys when it's difficult. Let's just do bogeys avoided first, and we'll adjust throughout the week if we need to. But when a round is difficult, your top bogey avoiders are Rory, Shane Lowry, Matt Fitzpatrick, Sung Jae, Scotty Scheffler, Sebastian Munoz, Brendan Todd, Taylor Gooch, who I know is on LIV, but again, it comes down to whether they are accepted or allowed to play via the lawsuit they filed. I believe that decision is supposed to come down tomorrow. Tony Finau, Corey Connors, and Matt Kuchar, if you do not count Taylor Gooch. Conversely, your birdies gained players. So you got Rory, who is second in birdies, first in bogeys. You're not going to beat that. Fitzpatrick, 10th and first. Scheffler, 4th and 5th. Honorable mention to Aaron Wise, 10th and 14th. Okay, so there's a look at a couple of the guys who are top 15 in both birdies and bogeys. But I'm just doing the emphasis on bogeys tonight until we're really able to scrutinize the data. Again, with greens and regulation being so important, I don't think proximity is going to be a big factor. But we can take a look at a few of these ranges that the course breakdown suggested that the majority of approach shots come from. But I don't think I'm going to do much with prox total. So let's take a look at, probably more 150 to 175 and 175 to 200. So we'll look at this sort here. So your top proximity players from 150 to 175 yards since February 1st. Lee Hodges, Will Zalatoris, Justin Thomas, Graham McDowell, who is definitely on LIV, John Huh, fantastic week this past week at the Wyndham, somebody I was very, very high on, and I hope you took that advice. Max Homa, Cameron Smith, Matt Jones, who's also on LIV. So you got Jones and McDowell. So Streelman, Hubbard, Rose, and Morikawa. So the top 10 in terms of proximity, 150 to 175, without the LIV guys. Lee Hodges, Will Zalatoris, Justin Thomas, John Huh, Max Homa, Cameron Smith, Kevin Streelman, Mark Hubbard, Justin Rose, and Colin Morikawa. Oh, and Chris Stroud, tied for 12th with Colin. Okay. And then if you want to look at the 175 to 200, you've got Lee Hodges, who's 8th there. Justin Thomas is 11th. Kevin Streelman is 16th. of the players who are top 10 in the 150 to 175 and solid in the 175 to 200. But if you want to sort on the 175 to 200 specifically, those top 10 players are Tom Hoagie, Tony Finau, Shez Reavie, Siwoo Kim, Vaughn Taylor, Lee Hodges, Victor Hovland, Henrik Norlander, Justin Thomas, and I'm going to say Kurt Kitayama, but I think he went to LIV, so it's Satoshi Kodaira. But again, skipping Kevin Hawke, skipping Abraham Ancer, I know they're on LIV and not sure if they're going to be allowed to play. Elsewhere, we saw that par threes, there were two of each of the various lengths. Par fours, maybe the 400 to 450 and the 450 to 500. So we'll take a look at each of those. Your top performers on par fours from 400 to 450 yards since February 1st. Luke List, Tony Finau, JT Poston, Jordan Spieth, Scotty Scheffler, Brendan Todd, Adam Svensson, Justin Thomas, Hideki, Matt Fitzpatrick, and Tyrrell Hatton. And then if you want to combine that with the 450 to 500, only one player is top 10 in both 400 to 450 and 450 to 500. That's Tony Finau, third and third. If you're going to sort just on the 450 to 500, those top 10 players since February 1st, Rory, Shane Lowry, Tony Finau, Sebastian Munoz, Aaron Wise, John Rahm, Aaron Rai, Denny McCarthy, Gary Woodland, and Sam Burns. So, all right. There's that. Not sure we want to do too much with the par 5 efficiency just yet until we are able to scrutinize the data, look at some historical leaderboards, all that stuff. But we can look at putting. We noticed in the course breakdown that perhaps 10 to 15 feet might be something to look at as 2.2 percentage points more birdie putts here than the average tour event. Let's see, 8.5 to 7.3. Those are roughly even. Maybe 10 to 20 feet, perhaps. Maybe 5, but let's just take a look at 10 to 20. These two ranges here. And we're definitely going to be on Bermuda, so we'll add the Bermuda filter. All right, so your best putters on Bermuda from 10 to 15 feet since February 1st. Keith Mitchell, Alex Noren, Sung Kang, Brendan Todd, Chesson Hadley, Jared Wolfe, Stuart Sink, Brandon Wu, and Dylan Fratelli. Now, interesting, Dylan Fratelli is the only one that's top 10 in both 10 to 15 and 15 to 20. But you have an honorable mention here from Kevin Chappell, 12th and 8th. So if you want to look at 15 to 20 feet Bermuda performance since February 1st, those players are Matt Kuchar, John Huh, Dylan Wu, Dylan Fratelli, William McGirt, Brant Snedeker, Kevin Chappell, Kevin Kisner, Bo Hostler, and Kramer Hickok. Poulter being LIV. All right, so there you go. Let's see. Anything else? I don't think that's. I think that's going to be it for Fantasy National tonight. Again, I'll just refresh the page one more time, but I think they still just have the Wyndham. Yeah. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come to Microsoft Excel just very quickly. We're not going to be able to look at all 5 years. So let me change the view for you all. So the reason why we're not going to be able to look at all 5 years, the St. Jude has been a WGC event the past 3 years, starting in 2019, 2020, and 2021. Why is that significant? Because it's not a full field event. So these numbers will definitely skew the data. And that's why you have this kind of divider here, at least for me. So what I intend to do tomorrow, and that'll be part of the live stream on Twitch. So if you want to see some of this live, make sure to join tomorrow. But I'm definitely going to be breaking this out, just the 2 years back from 2017 and 2018 when this was a full field event, and get those numbers and compare them to the average full field course. But we can take a look just in general and get a feel for what seems to be important for for the top 30 players over the years. You see distance. Surprisingly, fairways doesn't seem to be all that much. Let's go to the course evaluation. That's the Wyndham. So course evaluation, yeah, like fairways doesn't seem like it's much. You've got, see, this was what I was afraid of. You've got a lot of negatives here, and that's due to the fact that it was not a full field course. So that's why I'm definitely going to have to break these 2 years out. Let's see. So when it was a full field event, good drives gained mattered. Okay, that makes sense. A good drive gained being a player either hits the fairway or hits the green in regulation. So that makes a lot of sense. Maybe we want to look at good drives. The years that it was a full field event, strokes gained approach, a lot of strokes gained approach, a little bit of putting. Around the green and off the tee are almost identical. Let's look at eagles, birdies, and bogeys. Eagles, a decent enough rate here. Okay. I mean, it's from, 3-4 years ago, but decent enough rate there. More birdies than bogeys, but again, it's hard to say so without comparison to other full field courses. Double bogeys, I'm sure, will probably be something you want to look at this week, and we'll probably do tomorrow in the data dive. Let's see. I don't think they had. Maybe they did. It just played to literal zero. I'll have to double check that. But none of the par threes scream very important. Maybe the 150 to 175, but I mean, this was a complete outlier compared to the other 4 years. You can see the par fours, the 2 years it was a full field event, exactly 5.57 each time. Par fours are just going to be very, very important. Let's see, of the 2 par 4 lengths we looked at, looks to be the 450 to 500 pretty comfortably. So, okay, but certainly both are going to be important. Par 4s are just going to be important in general. 500 plus, don't think those years had them, but I'll double check. Par 5 scoring, let's see. The years it was a full field event, pretty important, especially in 2017. But neither of the, I mean, maybe the shorter one, but again, there's only one hole here and one hole here. So if we do anything, it'll be strokes gained par 5s total, but I'm not sure. Then finally, let's look at proximity and putting. So prox total, maybe. Actually, that seems decently high. 150, these 3 ranges here were the ranges to look at in terms of the amount of approach shots. Like 150 to 175, this is Wyndham. So we can kind of take a quick look. Like this is close to Wyndham territory. So we might be looking at some more 150 to 175 approaches. Maybe some 125 to 150. But it seems like the 150 to 175 is the main approach length here at the St. Jude. And then finally, let's look at putting. Let's see, from 0 to 5 feet. Okay, like 5 to 10 feet looks very, very important. The 2 years it was a full field event, so that could be something. Okay, definitely have to take a look at that tomorrow. But all right. So again, it was going to be a shorter show. I apologize. With Fantasy National not having the field loaded in yet, I'm going to save a lot of that for the data dive tomorrow, and I will make sure it's a longer show. But again, a reminder, I'll be live on Twitch tomorrow, so I'll definitely be doing some of this research. If you want to get the first knowledge or get first-hand knowledge of it, drop by on Twitch. Would love the interaction, the chat, and so forth there. In the comments of the video, let me know how you did for your Wyndham. Like I said, I called it a success, even though I technically lost money monetarily. I got 55% of my lineups through 6 of 6. It just didn't break my way over the weekend. That happens. Didn't have enough Ju Kim. I was worried about his ownership. He was very highly owned. I only had Sung Jae once or twice. Fortunately, I had Ju Hyung and Sung Jae on the same team, so that really helped. I had a lot of John Huh. I had a lot of Shane Lowry, who last I checked went completely cratered today. These players like Justin Rose. I had Brian Harmon, who cratered over the weekend. Davis Riley was somebody else I was high on. He played well, so mixed bag of success. But again, 6 of 6 lineups, I will never complain about getting through, and I had 55% of them. So, but let me know about your success. Let me know what you're wanting to see tomorrow night in the data dive, as we prepare for a lot of intense digging into the data tomorrow for what is going to be a longer show, since this one was so short. But thanks for tuning in, watching, and listening. I always appreciate the support. For all of the wagers you had this past week at the Wyndham, for all of the DFS contests you entered this past week at the Wyndham, and until I see you tomorrow night for the Data Dive show, may all your bets be profitable.